and that's usually stapled shorter, which is a big help.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone, and we open up our meeting exactly at 7:01. Who is present to speak? So if anybody here is desiring to say anything, please state your name, and we will be here. We will be here to hear from you.
All right, Maureen Locholi, 41 Cosgrove Road, present to speak. And speak now?
Yes, sure.
Oh, okay. Kind of read it in a different order, I apologize.
Oh, no, don't worry.
Okay, I'm just going to be brief before the board tonight. And
Sorry, before you start, I'm sorry, so I don't want to interrupt you. You have maximum 5 minutes. That's
Yeah,
our
and that's
time
fine.
limit. Okay,
That's fine, thank you. So I'm just speaking in reference to the last town meeting that we had and informing about forming a school committee. So I've been able to reach out to CREC. I work for CREC. I've been working for CREC for over 14 years. So I've been able to reach out to CREC and our facilities and buildings manager, Doug Rogers. So I spoke with him and I briefly shared what Wellington is interested in doing and exploring possibly building or renovating an existing or a new school for students pre-K through the 8th grade. So during my conversation with Doug from CREC, who manages more than 20 facilities right now, and public schools, and we've managed, built, renovated over $600 million in project costs of different phases of schools and things. So he totally understands what we're going through and what we're experiencing. So what Doug mentioned to me, at no cost to the school, to the district, because we're a regional source, that he'd be willing to work with the board, work as a liaison, give some information. So I'm going to have a package that I'll present to the board so you can look through it at your own convenience. So he and Doug also placed the emphasis on the state of Connecticut grant-based program. It's granted based on the number of students enrolled times the square footage of the property. So in addition to highlighting that, Doug also recommended that the committee, which some may know or may not know, would possibly need to perform an environmental assessment, which includes an asbestos management plan and facilities assessment. In addition, because if you don't include those costs in your grant, you don't get the money for it, it goes back on the taxpayers. So every piece that you don't include into the grant, it goes back on the taxpayers' dollars. So he also mentioned that the deadline is coming around pretty close. It's June 30th. So if anything submitted this year, it's coming around close. Doug mentioned that, so we talked about the cost. I'm going to also, the package I'm going to be giving you, I'll also send an electronic copy to Robin in case someone needs it. Robin Campbell, I'll send it to her as well. Doug recommended a couple architectures that work with the school's new foundation, existing foundation renovations, from things where, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Colt building in Hartford. That was a gun shop. That's totally renovated. It's apartments, and CREC has a full school in the Colt building. So that's one of the renovations. And as a resource to education, and it's available to us through general statutes of the state of Connecticut, why not tap into it? And with 20 years of experience in state grant and writing and capital planning, CREC can possibly provide added value to construction consultation, because we're a nonprofit organization, and it varies depending on what assistance a district may or may not need. So from construction, pre-construction to closeout, and the grant process. So I mean, CREC has been deemed experts in efficiency and energy for schools. And it's hard to get volunteers who are familiar and knowledgeable with components of a capital project. So CREC mentioned, as Doug said, he can serve as a committee liaison, project management, and to help to make good decisions to implement the budget in a timely fashion and sensitive manner. So with that being said, as acquisitions, planning, zoning, all those areas that we may miss pieces of, CREC is willing to be our liaison for free And I have all of his contact information. I'm going to be passing that forward. I'll pass the package forward to
Do you
the
want to
board.
give it to us now?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
And,
If you could please, do you have enough to give it to all the
I
members?
do.
Because it would be wonderful. I would also suggest for you to give that information to the building committee when it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in closing, I'm neither for or against the schools because we need a safe environment for the children, but it's not really the building that really teaches the students to read, write, problem solve, or excel in testing. It's climate, it's a safe environment, it's teachers' instructions, it's aligning with curriculum, it's our updated books, it's our program fundamental and technology resources that help build more successful pathways for students and families' lives. So if we already have the school hall foundation and it's already given to us, it may be cost effective for us to build on what we currently have, add to the building as opposed to building a new construction. Let's make it higher and innovative and informative with technology for the students. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time investment.
Thank you.
Come over, guys, if you want to join us, feel free.
My report.
Oh, absolutely. Find the seats. So is there anybody else present to speak? You wanted to say something?
Sure.
Yes. Could you please state your name? We would appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Blaze. I live on 50 St. Maurice Circle up here, and I am here to speak on behalf of the arts in Willington schools because it means a lot to me. I started singing when I was 4 years old in church choir, and all through elementary school and middle school I was supported with the arts that the school has with Miss Castles and Jason Phillips and all of the extra student teachers and band teachers that we've been given as fantastic mentors, and that has led me to pursue the arts as a career, hopefully. And I now go to an art school, one of the correct schools that they offer at the Coop. And I love it. And I think if we didn't have as much support in the arts at the Willington schools that we do now, I wouldn't be here speaking and feeling as confident as I am with what I'm doing. Because a lot of high schools focus on sports. And sports is great, and sports is very good at making team and making a community, but the same thing goes for the arts as well. Because when you are doing a show and you have ensemble, you have people doing tech and lights, and you have people who sing behind you and next to you as your friends and as your family. They have a saying at the Arts Academy, academy is family, and it really is. And that goes with any sort of theater, musical theater, band, chorus. It's visual arts. It's a way to bring people together. I mean, I got Gertrude McFuzz in Seussical in 6th grade. Now, you are lower class when you are in 6th grade. But doing that and having people around me in 8th grade, 7th grade was really nice because I could now walk in the hallway and I could be like, hey, 8th grader, and they won't like totally ignore me. And I can still talk to some of those people today. You know, it allows me to feel connected to other people and feel a part of something. And I think that's what's really important, to be a part of something and feel accepted, because the arts are a bunch of misfits. I'm not gonna lie. We are the nerds, the geeks, about singing on stage and wearing costumes and pretending to be someone else. But I think that's the best part, because you get to express yourself in a way that not a lot of people get to do and not a lot of people want to do. But you want to do it, and the people around you want to as well. So.
Thank you so much. It was so encouraging. Thank you.
And guess what? She attends one of the renovated schools that Craig.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience. Very nice to hear. Go ahead, you just state your name.
I just wanted to read something I wrote really quickly.
Oh, could you please state your name?
I know.
I'm Riley Quinn and I live on Village Street up by Halls Pond and everything. I also go to Great Hartford Academy of Arts in Hartford. It's a really amazing school, and I just wanted to say that music is a part of my everyday life. In Hall School's music and drama program, it has taught me so much. It's taught me to be confident. It has taught me to have stage presence, and it has taught me to be myself. And being myself is one of the best things that I've learned to do. Like, Willington, I feel like they chose to hire some of the best people who are willing to communicate and get along with the students, who are willing to help, who are willing to be family. Because Mr. Phillips is one of the music directors, the choir director, and he was really somebody that me and Stephanie looked up to growing up, and he helped us grow so much that without the music program, I don't think that me and Stephanie would have gone to a correct school with amazing people who teach us to pursue. We have people who have been on Broadway and they're teaching us our technique, and it's amazing because I can write on my resume if I go on an audition in New York and be like, I am learning from somebody who has been on this Broadway stage and this theater on this street, and people know their names. I'm like, they're like one of my parents. I've learned this from them. I've learned how to do Grand Plie. It's so amazing that when you're in musical theater, visual arts, theater design and production, where you're building the sets, you don't realize how important people who, like ensemble is. You don't realize how important that is until you are part of ensemble. You don't realize how important the people are who make the costumes. Like, they put their heart and souls, and that's their way of putting their heart and souls into the arts, which my way is performing, because the feeling of people clapping for you after you've worked so hard for a certain amount of months, it's even more than 2 months. Like, when you're on Broadway, you could be touring for a year, years on years. It just depends on how much people appreciate you, and when people appreciate you, it's the best feeling ever.
Thank you so much. What a nice word. So we'll have to pass this word to your teacher, which you mentioned, Mr. Phillips, to make sure that he's encouraged to by your word. Thank you, dear girls. Thank you for being brave enough to come here and share with us your experience. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else present to speak? You still will have a chance if you will want to say something at the end. We'll have present to speak at the end. And now we will move with our agenda for communications. Do you have anything? So chairman's report, because our chair, Mr. Herberica, is absent today, so I'm a vice chair. I'm taking over this lead at this moment. So he was supposed to discuss schedule Board of Education retreat. I think we should try to do it while we are all here. So what do you think, when is the best time for us to have Board of Education retreat? My suggestion, anytime except summer.
They're typically about 3 hours, so it's a chunk of an evening. It's not a retreat, like a full day retreat like you might do a work.
Is it normally in Monday through Friday?
Yeah.
That's up to us. We can if we have to, can we do it on Saturday? I wonder, because 3 hours, it's not that easy to find during the. I'm just wondering. Not that I want it, but
I think we should try for the weekdays first if we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's 1 hour?
Yeah. Usually we do it once a year.
Herb and I talked, and we were actually going to do it one for the new folks as well, that is separate from the full board retreat. So new members with myself and with Herb would do a new member retreat, and then the full board retreat would be everybody.
So it might not need to
So-
be 3 hours, it might be 2 or 2.
It depends on what we do.
Yeah.
So we can still schedule 3 hours if we are done
Well,
earlier.
it sounds like we should schedule 2 is what you're saying.
Yes.
Well, I'll get to them separately.
Okay.
Well, would the new member thing happen first so we can be more
Doesn't matter.
productive at the regular thing with more
I
up
don't,
to speed?
it's not gonna be, you won't, they're separate.
Okay. What month are you talking?
It's not a question.
So how about, we're gonna be done with the budget now, we'll have a little slowing down, we could do March or April. What do you think?
Some of the retreats we've had, the attorney come for a review of some of the policies, or is that something that we might include? So even if we pick a date tonight, we're probably gonna have to check with her schedule and possibly
Yeah.
any presentations, or if the.
And we
attorney-
talked about Kate, Herb and I
Yeah,
talked about
yeah,
inviting Kate.
Yep.
So,
You might not be able to actually pick a date tonight, but what you might need to do is just say, Thursday nights are out for me.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't have any okay, so. Thursday after-
Okay,
It's perfect spot.
So I have a great idea. I have a doodle account where you can just check the boxes of which nights you're free and leave blank the boxes that you're not here. Because I think that it's really hard, especially people in the audience, to schedule for dates. And I can tell you, my calendar is like up and down and all over the place. So there's some nights I'm free and some nights I'm not, and it's not just Thursdays. So unless you want to go date by date.
So how about if somebody will say like days a week, like I can say Wednesdays, I can make Wednesdays, somebody else can make Wednesdays?
so when I used to schedule, the soccer carpool, I had everybody email me, tell me when they could not show up. And then I put all the information of what was left.
Which is kind of what Michelle's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
So that's
one-
an-
One's automated and one's just an
And that
email.
way,
I mean, I can have Brenda do that.
only because I can tell you anytime after April 19th. And not on Wednesdays. And you said Thursdays. were-
Not on Wednesdays?
No, no Wednesdays, and she's
How
not.
about an alternate Tuesday that we're not meeting? The one that's not the second week of the month?
That's probably can work.
I mean,
And we can do end of April? How about end of April on Tuesdays?
I can't do the 25th.
you say end of February, what did you say?
suggested that.
End of April,
End
Tuesday,
of April.
Tuesday, end of April.
What is the 28th look like?
Let's look it up.
If you're into April, why don't you just let me put out some dates in April then? Which is fine. If I pick 6 days in April and say, write your name next to you, which days you could attend, does that make sense?
Just do like
'Cause
the last 2
Herb's
weeks
not
of
here either.
April. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, let's start from the second half of April because
Yeah,
you
I
are
said
busy
the last
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Last one
Twentieth on.
And that'll give me time, if we want a speaker, and Herb and I talked about someone coming in, if they're not available, then we might need to go further out. So, okay, perfect, that works for me, and I'll, Liz and Donna, I'll be, or Brenda will be in contact with you to book us. Okay,
Okay, now it's superintendent's report.
all right. We have a few special items tonight. There's a young lady in the audience tonight that did a dog supply drive. Molly Bean is here to talk to us, to do a quick presentation for us about something really cool she did, and I wanted to invite her in because it's nice to hear some of the things that we see from ourselves. Oh, hold on. 3, 2, 1, wave your magic wand, Molly. Oh, there it
Yay.
is, perfect. All right, Molly, say hi.
Hi, my name is Molly.
Hi, Molly.
Keep going.
I started the food drive because I wanted to help animals. I deeply care about them. I also thought it would make my family happy because I wanted to honor a memory because when my dogs died.
This dog here, right?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
We're honoring his memory.
nice.
Don't say
Keep going, you're doing great.
Keep going.
watch. We collected the supplies, toys, and donated them all to the WIllington Animal Shelter and Human Societies.
So Mr. Stevens, next picture.
Can you? Wearing the same thing, I don't want to
Keep going.
And then Now we have a new dog. Her name is Mischief. She's very small. She's 4 months old when we got her. She's like a ninja. 1 second she's in the living room, then she's in front of you. She's right there.
She's right there.
Yes.
This was right here in this
And look at
room.
that, that's right here in this room.
Well, that's a lot of supplies. You got it together yourself? Wow.
Who donated the supplies, Molly?
People at my school.
So she organized this at school,
Ah.
and they had it in front, and she was the one that promoted it and got a bunch of supplies.
We got more than that.
You got more than that?
Thank you.
And then that was that's the last picture that we have there since. What is your new dog's name?
Mischief.
Mischief?
She's earned her name.
She looks mighty calm to me.
Scared.
Wow.
Mischief in the morning and tired at night.
So I wanted to invite Molly in just because I think it's important, and we talk about test scores, we talk about a lot, but there's other things, the type of students we want. We want well-rounded students. Projects like this that show, that they care for animals, they want to promote good in their community and their school. That's the type of thing that we're looking for. And so we have a few of those tonight, and Molly got to come on first. So Molly, you're a rock star kid. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for bringing the whole fam down and bringing the dog too.
Thank you so much. Continue your good job.
So the second thing on the agenda there is Connecticut General Children's Hospital, the PJ Day for Kids. This is another piece of positive news. We participated on Friday, December 13th. This started about 8 years ago. I believe it started in Coventry in honor of children at the hospital who have to wear their pajamas almost all the time. And so people could donate, if they could, donate $1 and they got to wear their pajamas. We participated here in this building as well. And we donated over $600 to the Children's Hospital. We got a nice letter back from them. It's statewide. There's about over 150 towns that are now doing this. I think that if they show a map, and the towns that are not are probably going to be joining pretty quick because it's really blatant. But the state raised over $340,000 this year for this program, which is really incredible. But again, it gets to the point of what do we want our kids knowing, what type of people do we want them to be, and this is something else that was on there to share. And then C is the same thing, same type of thing. We're looking at Center School, they did a program called Look for the Good. And we're going to have some student visitors in next month to talk about this program, but Center School was featured on Fox 61's website, and it's a gratitude program, and it has students doing a variety of tasks, but this gives you a sense of one of the things they did. They did a gratitude wall, and all the kids wrote down all the things they were grateful for. And Molly, how many spots were there in the hallways?
There were like 4.
4 different spots, and it was basically a gratitude spot on the ground. And I have cameras in my office, and so when I'm working, if I see something, I look up, and it's really funny. You can see students standing on the spot by themselves and talking and saying something. I can only imagine what they're saying something they're grateful for, and then moving on. I've seen some people have posted on Facebook. But it gives you a sense, again, the gratitude wall was a 2-week project. It's something they're going to try and continue. They wrote a grant to do this program. But again, that's a type of thing that we're trying to promote. And so I wanted to share the good news. So it's just neat stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Molly and family, I'll tell you that you're welcome to stay, but don't feel like you need to.
Thank you.
Because we're going to be here really late.
Okay.
So. First night.
Yeah. The Center School Special Education resignation, we received notification from Center School Special Education teacher Danielle Nash. She's leaving us for a new position in Ellington. This is her 6th year with us, and next week is her last week. This is a huge loss to the district. She's done an outstanding job. Just had a humongous impact on kids here. Very, very hard decision for her, and I'll tell you, it was financial. I passed around her letter, has made her way around. its way around. And the last center stage I was at was the celebration for this, the project for the Look for the Good. And a student she worked with was doing the performance and she was in tears. So you can see that she cares and is really having a hard time leaving, but had a huge impact. So she's going to be missed. We will be interviewing for that position to fill for the remainder of the year. It's a shortage area, so we're hoping for good candidates. If you know anybody for special education, for Center Elementary, let me know. Going from that to the boiler update, the boiler at HMS is up and operational. I had a staff member, I walked the halls today, and a staff member said, I think I actually have heat in my room. I don't think that person has noticed that she did not have heat. So her temperature was fine, but she said, I really noticed it's working. So it's up for its final inspection from the state, but it is a huge sigh of relief knowing that that new boiler is in. They were able to haul out the other sections of the boiler, and they were not able to save many parts because they were so corroded, which is too bad. But I'm excited that we have a good boiler in operation now. The next thing down is something new. This is something, I forgot to share this. This is the You Matter cards. This is part of that program, the Look for the Good. They pass these out. I got a You Matter card. Yeah. The school-based health services, we're going to have a presentation at the March meeting. Marcia McGinley, our Pupil Services Director, has been working to find a creative solution to the number of students that need counseling services. Our social worker, our school counselor, our school psychologist, their caseloads are huge. I talked to you about the number of students that have needs in the district right now, and she found something that is free. And it's free because it's through a federal grant. They came in, this group is called the Community Health Center. They came in and did a presentation for us, and basically what you do is they provide all sorts of services. They provide medical, dental, they provide behavioral, they provide a whole boatload of services. If you provide a space for them, they will provide you through the grants about 40 hours of behavioral support for your district. And it would be split up between the two schools. We had 1,000 questions as an administrative team, and the woman that came in knocked it out of the park. Her name is Jane Highlands. She is the Director of School-Based Health Services. There's about 190 schools in the state that are currently using this program. There's no out-of-pocket fees. Obviously, this is something that if a student is going to go see, this person is not our employee. There's a parent that has to sign off on this. There's a referral process through the school. We make the recommendation, the parent has to sign off on it. It's not just a drop-in. This is a fantastic opportunity. So we have started the process because they have to apply for the grant. We've started the process to have them apply for the grant, but I want Jane to come in March to allow you to answer questions and hear about the amazing things that they can offer us at no cost to Wellington. The number of students that really need some sort of counseling services is extremely high right now. If you hear the term toxic stress, it's in our schools, and if we can provide something for our students to help them improve, we should do that. And so I wanted to open the door for you just so you understood that they're going to come in and do a presentation for us in March, and if you have questions, I encourage you to go on their website. The dental program is something that we've also talked about. The only other piece of the services that they offer, we're not looking at medical at this point. The dental is basically like a bus. They come in for a couple days and people have appointments and they just come in and that's it. But this other portion comes in into the building. We would have to give them space in the building.
Can you send the website address around
Yes, I
via
can.
email so we can just look
Yeah.
on it?
Ashford just applied, and they're going that route as well. So
You said you've got 40 hours.
yes. and they're supervised by a director for the area. So we're not responsible for supervision. I asked if they've ever had any issues with school saying we're not happy with something, and she said no. But she said you have to find a good fit. You have to find a person that's a good fit for your district. But that's would be on them. So just a unique opportunity, and I like the dollar signs attached to it. G, the roof patching. The rain has not cooperated with us at this point, so we haven't been able to patch. We've been in contact with the company. We're hoping next week is going to allow this to happen. I'm hoping the ice stays away. I know we're supposed to have some bitter cold, but as soon as we get a day where it's dry up there, they can go up there. It doesn't matter the temperature, it just has to be dry and no snow. So hopefully next week is the week for both schools. And the last thing on my report, yeah, go ahead.
Question, sorry, about roof patching, what do you think, how long it's gonna take? Like, they
Not-
start, they can do it for one day?
Oh, yeah. They can probably do, I believe they can do one building in one day.
So 2 days?
Yeah,
Maybe 2 days.
it won't take very long for them to do it. They'll be up there all day long. And then the last thing on there is the budget calendar. I don't know if this was part of my process in the past, but I provided you a copy of the dates of the budget process moving forward. So if you make your approval tonight, I want to give you a sense of where it goes next, when the board presents, you know, what night. I heard that CIP is starting their conversation tomorrow night as far as where they're going to place projects. So it gives you some data so you know what's going on at what point.
Okay, so financial report, I have nothing.
All
I
right,
was
so,
given nothing, so.
oh, you didn't get this?
Maybe in
Yeah,
here.
you should have it. This
Ah.
is my notes.
I mean, by her, who did just mention.
Bye, guys, thank you.
Thank you for
the
coming.
opportunity.
So, very little has changed in this budget. You know, I was talking about a freeze. I actually have some good news today, which I'm happy to report. We had a budget meeting, and really it was about Program 3 special education because of the shortfall. The number you see there, that 77,000, is more like minus 225,000. It is not 77,000. We run our projections for outplacements and tuition costs, and we believe we're going to have a shortfall after excess cost grant. We're going to have a shortfall of about 166,000. I say that, and that is as of about 3 p.m. today. Somebody comes in tomorrow, it could change, but as of today, it's about $166,000 shortfall after the excess grant cost. The good news is that Don and I both believe that the entirety of that shortfall can be covered by Program 10 by the insurance. We expected a 14% increase, it came down, that budget money was still there, and so if that money was not there, we would definitely be going back to ask for more, because there's no way we could cover that. So if you look at Program 10, that has that 207 in it, there's about 166,000 that will cover the shortfall. We still have a placeholder in there for insurance if somebody wants to change, and the remainder of the money is the substitutes for the district for the remainder of the year. So we are going to cover a huge, as of today, we are going to cover a huge deficit in special education without having to go back and ask for money. The other good news is the money that's in the other accounts now, I'm not going to have a freeze because I can cover it. So obviously if something changes with special education, I will let you know. I'm going to put out an email to the staff to say we've been really lean. There's not a lot of changes on this report because I've said to the principals, don't give me any big requests, we need to be lean right now. And now we're going to start to buy some materials that we really have been holding off on. So I wanted to be clear on that. Everything else, basically all the other programs are really consistent. If you remember the difference between Program 1 and Program 2 is staffing. It's how we shifted the grants and how we shifted staff. The librarian position, we had the open math, open science position. That's why those are there. So everything else is moving on.
The center can get, I noticed Is Centra negative?
No, and the reason why is because we haven't done the transfers yet for staffing. And so some of this 294,000 that's in Hall is actually going to go into Center. And we'll
for
do,
staffing.
we'll have transfers next month for you that is all around staffing. We will not do the transfers from the program 10 to cover special education though, until towards the end of the year. Just in case you have to do more or less.
And that'll free up whatever they need for supplies or anything else in their budget. Okay,
Yes.
very good, thank you.
Yes, both principals' eyes lit up today when I told them, shared that news. I said, as of today. So that was a good thing. Obviously, we're still waiting on the diesel from the transportation, so that's not in the negative. But everything else in there is expected to be moving along at this point. Any questions about the budget summary?
Okay. So then we move on to new business. Approved minutes of January 14, 2020 meeting should be in your documents. The first one. Do we need time to go through it, or you had a chance to look at it?
I move to approve the minutes of the January 14th, 2020 meeting.
Maybe a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, do we want to discuss it? Anybody has question about those minutes?
I just have a comment, and I just feel like maybe I wasn't the only one who felt this way, that normally in the meetings that I've come to in the past, the minutes, I would read them and it would reflect what was in my memory and I could verify what happened. I left the meeting on January 14th feeling very confused about some of the motions and votes we had made and what the outcomes of them were. And I had to rely on the minutes when they came out to fill my memory with what had happened. So I hope that we can all make sure that we're all understanding what's being voted on and how the motions are finalized at the end, whether they pass or not, because that shouldn't be the case. I felt very uncomfortable.
Yeah, maybe we should try when we vote, maybe we should just lift our hands.
It wasn't
Then it
that, it
would
was
be
just what was the
more clear.
motion, what exactly was the motion, and sometimes we had to clarify, but I still left feeling like, and maybe it was just because we're a new board, we were having a,
And that night, there was a vote change. Someone changed their vote at one
Yeah.
point, which was confusing, which we don't often do. But even so, if we clarify what were the motion before we vote and then clarify after it's done, I think that's best practice and works.
I think that's also going to be part of your training.
yeah, because I just.
We talked about having that part of the training, so that way you don't have one person that knows, everybody knows pieces of Robert's rules, you have one expert. You want to make sure everybody understands, this is where we are, and this is how we're going to move forward. You're following the process. So we plan to have a small portion of that on your training.
Okay, any more comments or questions about the minutes? Are we ready to vote? Let's bring to the vote. Can you repeat your motion?
I moved to approve the minutes of the January 14th, 2020 meeting.
Yes, so it's seconded. So let's vote. Everybody who approves the minutes, please say yes and lift up your hand.
Aye.
Aye. So it's approved unanimously. Thank you. The next, new business improvements of January 23rd special meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the January 23rd, 2020 special meeting.
Second.
Second. Any discussion or questions? So no questions, no discussion. Let's vote. I move to vote for this motion to approve the minutes from November 12th, 2019. Everybody,
January 23rd.
oh, what did I say?
November 12th.
Oh,
I don't think we're that far behind.
I
We did miss a
apologize.
couple meetings, but
What is this?
January 23rd.
Oh, I'm looking in my attachments. Okay. So January 23rd. So I move to approve the minutes for the January 23rd special meeting. Everybody who is ready to say yes, please say yes and lift up your hand, please. Aye. It is approved unanimously. Now review and approve 2020-2021 Board of Education budget.
So I updated the budget for you, and I didn't give you a copy if you look up on the TV because it was two things. Sorry. It was two
You're not
things.
imagining.
I highlighted it in yellow, and we went through all the numbers. So the videographer is there, you added an extra $1,000 to that, made it $2,200. That was program 9. The other change you made was out of program 10, and that was the full amount of $31,000. You added that in because you wanted to make sure the whole long-term sub piece was covered. So that change was made, and when you did that, this is what the final would be, and this does say approved BOE budget, but it's so draft, it's not published. So your total is right there. So your Board of Ed approved budget would be $8,983,830. Your increase would be $294,735. Your percent increase would be 3.39%.
I move to approve the 2020-2021 Wellington Public Schools budget at $8,983,830.
Okay, let's discuss now. Anybody has questions, comments?
I do, because I emailed you
Yeah.
my question. One is, I look at budgets all the time, and so one of the difficulties for me with this is I wish we could see the budget and the actual next to each other. And then if there's an area that we typically under budget and we're having to play catch up, like the substitutes is a perfect example. But then there's another area that we're using that as a buffer because we know we under budgeted someplace else, like this, what we're doing with the fringe benefits and the special ed.
It's really your own line.
To me, it would make more sense to make them what they realistically are going to be. I know that there were certain items that we discussed where you said, for now, this is the number, like with the internet. You're hoping it goes away, but you don't know, so you have to budget that.
Correct.
But some of these other things, I don't understand why we just don't make them real.
Which numbers?
Like the insurance number,
You don't know the insurance number.
well, you said it budgeted for a 14% increase a couple of years ago, it only went up 2. And now the maximum percentage it's gonna go up is 7. But the 14, I know it's cumulative, so it's not really totally 9, it's a little bit more. But that other piece, if we took away the other piece and put it, used it where it would need to be like special ed or the substitutes, then we're not putting in fluff. for lack of-
You don't know what your insurance line is going to be because you don't know who's taking insurance and change. So even though the number's flat from last year, new people can come in and take insurance, or they could drop their insurance and take the waiver. So when you see the numbers, it's not like, especially that, we could be under. If more people take insurance, you could be under.
And
So
every
we
year,
keep
there's not
one-
a trend with them either, so every year it's a little.
You keep one placeholder, which means you're taking your risk for comfort risk is really that we're banking on only one person changing. Sometimes it's significantly more than that.
Anne wanted to say something.
Also, at this time last year when we built this budget, they were saying there could have been a 14% increase. So we kind of have to go with the higher number. And the same applies for the special ed, or 7, it was 7?
Now 7.
Now it's.
Yeah, but didn't we think at
Yeah,
that
that was the
point,
number
that
we
was
had.
the estimate we had?
Correct.
The other thing was with the special ed, you never know when someone's going to move into town that's going to need a special ed placement. So it's really hard to budget now for those unforeseen, to budget it accurately. And the best you can do is kind of balance it out as the year goes on.
I think the Board of Ed in general has returned money over the last 10 years, probably close to the tune of $1 million. So if there's money left for something, as long as you're not on a freeze and you haven't been able to buy the things that you need, the board has always returned money. Last year, you returned some money. It wasn't a lot, but it was also, the board was on a budget freeze. And to be honest with you, I would have spent every dollar last year if I knew that up to that point, because we didn't buy things last year that we needed because of the budget freeze to cover. But the insurance is probably the only, it's a big area,
Yeah.
and it's the hardest to know because of when we negotiate.
So is the negotiation I look at insurance policies a lot, and people pick their year ends. Are the year ends for the insurance policies, do they coincide with the teacher contracts? Is it calendar year? Like, does that get picked?
Yeah, it rolls with the contract, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so there's no.
Plus, don't the company costs vary?
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah,
also
so-
depends on our usage.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have, and they bring in the numbers, and when we sit down with them, they're like, listen, your usage is up. You have 5 people right now, and they need to use their insurance, but you have 5 people that are really high right now, and it's bringing when people go out to bid, and someone's gonna bid on Willington, they're looking at that.
Oh, yeah.
And if our usage is down, we come down. Last year, the reason we were told 14%, and then we said, we're looking at the state plan, and they did not want to lose us. And so, that's why they came in. That's why they came in so low. And so they know that we went out to bid again this year. They know we're looking at trying to provide the same benefits at a lower cost.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was a way to shift the year so you knew what it was gonna be, except for the people that drop in or drop out.
Yeah.
That would be nice. I was gonna point out, one of the things is that you make the assumption of one placeholder. 8 years ago when I started on the Board of Ed, David Harding always did 2. And that gives you a little bit more buffer, and then you return at the end of the year if you don't need it. But for example, we have the special ed teacher moving out. If she has a single health insurance and we hire someone with a family, that is a big chunk of change that costs us. And that's just one, let alone what might happen before, kind of the August hiring season. So I feel like your assumptions are on the very conservative side. And the price you pay is that then there has to be some juggling at the end.
There's districts that, what you call fluff. I will say there's 3 things that they look at. One is when you know someone's leaving, they will bank on hiring someone at top step in a master's. If they hire someone for $20,000, they just found $20,000 of savings. That's one. Placeholders is 2. The number of placeholders you keep for insurance is another way. If you don't use them, it's extra money for you. And the third is there are many districts that when you do your budget, you plan to have an extra out-of-district placement. You bank $125,000 for transportation and tuition for someone. If they go out, you have the money and it's there and you don't have to go back to the town. We don't do any of those things.
Okay.
I would argue, though, that it's best practice in budgeting to have a contingency line. That we have no contingency line in here. That's the reason we have to do the budget transfers. If I were putting together a budget, and in my budget for my organization, I budget a contingency. It's not a big amount, but it lets me have some peace of mind that I don't have to keep adjusting every other line. It allows me to do more actual budgeting in terms of then having to shift around later. So it's one way to do it, especially since we always give it back, but these are things that might go into the next budget cycle.
I think you've
So
created
something we might consider.
You've created some reasonable contingencies. They're not $100,000 outplacement, but you have a contingency that you put into this budget this year that you've not had before in long-term subs, that you were paying 125 days in average per year and trying to find the money to do that. That's a small contingency that you have covered now.
And that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Right, and those are the things that
You're
I
gonna have
think
sense.
one placeholder is a small contingency. You have those things. but there's not an excess of them, and they're not big dollar amounts compared to the overall budget.
You also mentioned, last year when you discussed the insurance, you said, you were considering state plan. What's the state plan? What's the difference?
So when you go out to bid, we have Connecticut, Cigna, you know, there's a lot of different insurance options. The state has their own plan, and their plan is we applied to get into their plan for one group of our participants, and we were denied. We would have to go in with, they wanted everybody, but the increase is whatever it is. The pool, when they started this plan, looks really good. But now, because it's cheaper, what does everybody want to do? You want to change and go into that plan to save money, right? Well, they're going to water down that plan at some point. People were seeing, I know Canterbury, I think they had an insurance increase one year of over 30%. That's a huge number in your budget for an increase.
Increase, because they went to the state plan?
No, in another one of their, from their
Okay,
insurance company. And so they look to do somewhat of, like a blue chip is one of the names of one of the plans, but they look to go to some sort of a state plan because they were being guaranteed a smaller increase. We have outperformed the last 3 years the state plan.
Okay.
So our percentage, our increases have been lower, and our benefits, we have I would say an average benefits plan. We don't have an outstanding, we don't have orthodontics, we don't have a lot, we could offer a lot more than your costs go up. So we've tried to be reasonable.
If I remember, there's also an element of being locked in to something. When you leave this and you go to the state plan, you can't just change from year to year the way we, you know, go out to bid for.
Yeah.
So there was a lack of flexibility that made the committee that was discussing it really nervous.
I don't think,
This, I think they wanted $6,000 or $8,000 from us to go out to bid, to get a number for the groups, for the towns that were interested. And then, if anybody pulled out, you had to do it again. We don't have that money to do that.
no.
So I don't disagree with you at all about, I really dislike the timing of this, because I'd rather be more accurate than say it won't be more than 7%. I'd rather say we know it's 2, we know it's 5, we know it's 7. I'd rather say that and budget for that.
Yeah, and I didn't know if there was a way to shift the timing of the plan year to better coincide with our decision-making process.
That's a good question.
But if it matches when the teachers' contracts are, that probably makes it much easier in having an intelligent discussion with the teachers, and everything's on the same cycle.
So another question. Last Wednesday, Thursday, we found out that the state is going to cut the school budget for Wellington for $38,679. So how reliable is that information?
I would say it's extremely reliable.
So that's how it's gonna be?
So Donna emailed me about this to ask what it is. And so basically what that is that's the education cost sharing grant is going to be caught by about $38,000. And the governor in his last presentation for the budget said they're pretty accurate. Some towns, and you look at Holland, I think, is losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. That doesn't come off of your budget though. What that does is the town looks at all of the revenues that are coming in, and that's how they create their total budget. So they take your Region 19 budget, you take your K-8 budget, you take your Public Works budget, you take them all together, and they have a number. And then they say, okay, we're gonna get $4 million in aid from the state for education. That comes off. We're gonna get this number from this grant, and they add up all those grants, and then they see where the increase has been. And if you've been part of that process for the last few years, you've heard them talk about our general fund. The auditors want it between 8 and 12%, and when we started this year, it was at about 15%, it was a little high. What they've done is they have used some of that money to bring the total cost down, and so your mill rate doesn't go up. That's where they've kept it flat. Oh my gosh, little board finance chair, Jim Buick, was really good at balancing those things out. he would look at and say, hey, if we take an additional 40,000, we apply it, we still have a healthy general fund, and we're flat. It doesn't come off of your budget though. It's all of the different revenues. They take all the different revenues for the town, and they look at the lump sum, and then they subtract and say, okay, what would our increase right now? Our town increase is gonna be $180,000 after looking at all the budgets. I'm making that up, it's not real. And we're gonna apply this much money from the general fund, and so we're only gonna see a $20,000 increase.
I think the timing of that is really important though, because this was just the governor's proposal. And his proposal has been totally reworked by the legislature. And so by the time they get to that decision in a month or two, they might know more about how those in backroom negotiations are moving. So by the time they get to that point in the Board of Finance process, they may have a better idea. But it still isn't final until the state budget is passed, which is generally the end of April. And by then, we're already at the town meeting. So there's always uncertainty as to what that number will be.
They've had that projection for a while though, Michelle.
Yeah, and I
Because
think
they
the
talked
trend,
about
I think the
multiple
trend
years.
is the same. I don't think it's gonna be,
Yeah.
100,000. I don't think it's gonna, be substantially different. I just wanted to, sometimes you read it in the newspaper, and they're like, oh, everything's getting cut, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, it was a proposal. A proposal is just a proposal.
Yeah,
Because
but
they're gonna rework everything, we
That's why
might
I
have.
have the question of,
Yeah.
you
That's a good
know,
question.
how real is this?
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Well, I'll dare to say something. I think we, as new members, already noticed, we don't have a lot of flexibility on the budget. Biggest part of it is contractual. So what we really have control, we have a control of a little bit over here, a little bit over there, a little bit over there, unless we start cutting globally, so hopefully we won't have to do it. So from my point of view, I think, knowing that there will be cut, I know it will be all together united, the budget, whole town, but we are responsible because the cut will apply particularly for the central and whole school. On the base of that state cut, which probably is going to happen because it's real, it's not a huge amount, I personally would support, do not increase the budget for 11,000 and go back to the regional budget. And I personally would suggest, instead of 1,000 for the Board of Education, keep that 400, because I think 600 we can fit. Of course, it's better to have more. So that's my personal thinking, because I did some calculations. They could sound ridiculous for you because it sounds pennies comparing with millions. But with my calculations, if we go along with the first budget, first proposed budget by the superintendent with 282,735 increase, that particular increase will cost us $235 increase in taxes, average taxes for 5,000 average household taxes.
How much?
It will cost $235.
But that's what you don't know.
No,
Because you
that's,
haven't had that, because your mill rate's been flat, that's what I'm saying. So when the
mill
town.
rate was not flat last year. We increased mill rate last year.
But when you look at the total, they can offset, they could have offset, if they knew they had 15%.
Or they can do it, I know.
They can offset that total amount. if
I
they
agree
wanted
with
to.
that. I agree. We don't know that I'm saying if that will stay, because we have a lot of projects hanging out on our CIP.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my personal thinking. I'm not pushing on anybody,
What
but
was the
personally, I personally cannot, at this point, I would suggest to cut back that 11,000, actually 11,400, and leave just 600 for the video recording. That's my suggestion. For the case that if we do get caught and if we do have problem with balancing it out in town, that's at least so we will do the best we can. I know our desires of the heart is to do maximum, but that's my thinking.
I would argue that the point that Donna just made about putting actual numbers in there was the 11,000 we added was just for that point. was to move to an actual number. And I think it's up to us to give to the Board of Finance a budget of what we think it's actually gonna cost and let them figure out the, whether or not they have to, they may have to reduce their capital cash reserve and, the mill rate could go down. We don't know that because that's not our job, that's their job. So for our job, I think what we have to do is give them the best numbers of what we have. And I think that adding in the 11,000 was actually doing that. It was making this budget more accurate.
And you want
No,
to?
Tracy's that
Oh,
right?
Tracy.
I think, when I looked at the number, I don't know what the top number one, I remember it being 3.39, is that? Which is a difference of 0.14%, which is very small. That's not 80, what's the percentage
It's
point?
about, it's a.
It's $80,000, right?
It's a little under 90.
So
The increase is
the
$12,000.
$11,000 that we're costing, and we're actually giving a number that's talking about, we had a very long discussion last week about the fact that over the past few years, the 2 years you and I have been on this board, we have had people have to be on long-term subs positions, have long-term subs because of pregnancy or illness. So we're giving an actual number, and I don't think it's irresponsible for us to tell the town we need that, because otherwise we're pulling it from somewhere else.
And we always find it though. That's my position. I'm not arguing. We'll have our
But
right
if
for
we-
our own opinion, so that's
We
okay.
do have our own opinions, but if we didn't have a mistake, not a mistake, if we hadn't had a situation with the insurance being less, we'd have already gone back to the Board of Finance right now because we don't have any cushions. The budget is as lean as it can get. So I think I think both of the things we voted for last week are we should be doing, but I would prefer to keep in the payment for substitute teachers than to have videotaping, because I think that's more important to people rather than, we have transparency right now, and I think we should go with it. What I'm saying, balancing them priority-wise, paying for the people who have to come into our building to teach our kids is more important than a video somebody can watch on TV when we have minutes and we have other things. That's,
I can't agree with that for you, but that's okay.
But I can give you a sense that, I talked to Erica afterwards, because I told her about the videoing, and she has it in her budget. I don't know if it's going to stay. She's looking for something that's mounted in this room that is well beyond what we were talking about. I don't know that that's something that you could take the, roll the dice and take it out. If it's not in hers though, you don't have the money for it, so.
I think we should just go with it, propose it, and then if the Board of Finance comes back and says, you need to cut, then we cut. It's better to give them what we need, and if they have to cut it, come back. Why do we have to cut up beforehand? We're telling them what we need. Not what we want, what we need. This is what we need to do the job that the Board of Ed is set to do. We're not here to pick the to decide what's available, because we don't have all those other budgets in front of us.
And you wanted to say something?
I support the budget as it stands, for the reasons we've talked about. I think it's a really accurate picture of what it costs to run our schools. Maybe even a little lean, but we're probably going to have to cut when it comes back, and
But maybe not. Maybe they're going to
Maybe,
say,
yeah.
this is a fair budget, because your increases are based on
contractuals.
contractuals, and so there's nothing we're going to do. We're not asking for extra teachers, we're not asking for extra services, we're giving you what we need with inflation based on what's happened with contractual.
Anybody else has something to say? Any more comments?
absorbing it all.
The
Any more
only
comments?
thing, if you're saying that the video could be 600, I mean, we're only talking
It could be
$400.
600 if we do
And
25
like,
days.
when will we know about Erica's?
The Board of Finance takes her budget and says, and they won't tell her what to cut. It's the selectmen's job to figure out what to cut. The Board of Finance could say, you need to cut $150,000. And the selectmen will have to prioritize how they cut $150,000. They have to figure that, whatever the number is. If they say, perfect, we love it the way it is, I don't think they will. But that's a selectman's job to figure out their own budget and then present it back to the Board of Finance.
And that's for video recording. The minutes are not supposed, or do not have to reflect everything what was said, every comment. It's just supposed to give us main points. So the job which we do here with minutes is an excellent job. But we are not obligated to do the job. So literally, if we have somebody else suddenly doing it, they have a right just to write like main points. While plus many people, especially younger generation, they are very lean towards watching videos. Some of the videos were watched over 700 times. So
I didn't say there wasn't
it's
value in it, I'm just
respectful towards the
saying.
town. We
I think we
represent
go
the
for it
town.
as it is. I think what we decided last week is what we should go for, and we send it to Board of Finance and let them make the decision.
Yeah,
And then we make decisions based on what they come back with. I'm for, go for what you need, and then cut if you have to. Don't cut beforehand and second guess what their opinion's gonna be. Because historically, the 20-something years I've lived in this town, the Board of Education budget has passed every single year. And that may be because people don't come out, but if it was important, they'd come out.
It almost always
It
passes
happens
due.
every year on the same, it's happening every year. So if they haven't paid attention by now, they're under a hole and they don't care. So let's put it to the people, put it to the Board of Finance, and then I would recommend to the Board of Finance, they put it to the people and let the people speak. That's my opinion. I don't want to cut things that we don't need because I work in a school building, and when it's lean, you pay for it, and the teachers are the people are what pay for it. The people who work in that building and work and live in that building and have to use the resources that are given to them. So we need to give them what they need.
Well, we are not cutting any supplies. The supplies stay as they are, so we are not even touching.
Why don't we
We're not
just
going
move
there.
forward to a vote? That's what I feel
Okay,
like.
let's move.
to a vote. Let's stop
Let's-
arguing, because I think right now you and I are arguing over nothing.
I'm not arguing. At least I
Yeah,
did
that's
not.
up to opinion too.
Sorry, Kathy. So if we are ready to vote, let's vote. Everybody who is ready to support the budget is represented, corrected budget as represented by by our superintendent. The budget in the amount.
Sorry, I'll get back up there. So it's- it's the number.
Sorry.
There it is.
So, everybody who is ready to approve the budget in the amount of $8,983,830, please say yes and raise your hand.
Aye.
Everybody who says no, please say no, it's me, and no abstain. Thank you. So the budget passed.
The board's budget.
Yes, well, at least,
It is,
It
no
is
longer
the
mine.
board's
We voted
Yeah.
It's now yours.
So we all
It's
support it
yours
now.
too, Elena.
We voted it, even if you didn't disagree, you need to support it or not speak.
what do you mean?
In our board policies, one of the things that's explicit in our code of ethics is that because we're a deliberative body, when we make a decision, we all stand behind that decision. That even though we
That's what
express
you-
our differences
That's what I
here,
mean.
even though we express our differences here at the table, when we go to the Board of Finance or to the Board of Selectmen or to an outside body, we represent the decision
Yes.
of the body and not
Yes.
our individual opinion. So
Yes.
that's
Okay,
the reference she was making.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, Michelle.
Okay, I just didn't really hear you well, so sorry, I missed what you said. But thank you so much for explaining it to me, Michelle. So, now we are moving to transportation policy. So, as I understand, we have a question with bus routes. Now, we're not gonna go to discuss the whole bus routes. We just want to review it.
Yeah,
I couldn't read it out of my eyes tonight.
Yeah.
this was just a chance for you to talk about, to see what was in the policy. This is one of the things that I'm recommending as a subcommittee. Should be an attachment in there.
Okay, it says attachment 5, is it really 4?
So what's the number of attachment?
I don't know. 4.
Yes, so it's misnumbered.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was looking at the correct.
You didn't miss one, nope.
It just has the general principles on there of, you know, what the board's responsibility is for transporting our students. It has the superintendent's responsibilities on there, what I'm responsible to do. And then it also talks about, you know, parent and guardian responsibilities, what they need to do. And then if there's any issues of kind of how they're handled. I will tell you, and the reason this kind of came up was I started talking about the potential, which I still don't have any more information for you, but potential for moving to a shared contract with Region 19, hopefully with significant savings. And that would make bus routes for pre-K through 8th grade students together instead of doing 2 runs, which is what we do now, 2 runs in the morning, 2 runs in the afternoon. It still fits within your policy. You wouldn't have to change anything within your policy. You could ask me to add some regulations as far as just good practice. This is nothing new. There's a lot of districts that do this, but we could add in regs. And regulations are basically written by me. You don't approve them, but you could say, hey, we want regs that are written that say, if you're in the elementary school, we want you in the first 4 rows or 5 rows. And if you're in the middle school, 7th, 8th grade, we want you in the back of the bus. Those types of things. You could start to address some of those things. You could look at the mileage that people were walking as long as it's within the state's numbers. But these numbers are really long. No one, I just want to be very clear about this, no one walks even close to a 1/4 mile or a 1/2 mile for their age groups, not even close. I would say on the elementary side, the longest walk is probably 300 feet, and it would be within a neighborhood where they do not have, my kids are probably one of those, where they're not going outside of their neighborhood. It's a double dead end where they have to walk from their driveway up. It is my responsibility to get them there or hang out with them if I want to, if I choose to do that, and that's what the parent's responsibility is on here. So that's where we have 14 group stops in the morning for Center, and we have 17 group stops for Hall. There's obviously a lot more stops, but they're in significant neighborhoods like St. Moritz, and so they're stopping at every house. Every question I received when we first put the group stops out, every question that came in from a parent was handled. I eliminated some group stops because I said, you know what, you're uncomfortable with it, I will eliminate that, and we did. And it was just, it was an easy way to do it. So the family that was here tonight actually was the family that called me and said, we walked across that bridge all summer long. The kids play over there, why don't you make that a group stop? I added the group stop, but I would not have walked in there otherwise. So that was kind of the question that came up with this, is the process, but I've worked with all the families. I've also adjusted these as they've went, as we've gone along in the year. I had a group stop that was a family was at their house and the other people walking down. The students now doing the morning music program, so they drive them to school for 6:45. The kid's never on the bus, so they said, can we make a group stop at our house in case, and if he's ever on the bus, then he can come to us. Makes sense to me. Talk to the parents, and I called them all in personally, and we've made all these adjustments. So I don't know if there's any questions about the transportation policy. I know that you were concerned, Elena, about some of those group stops in the walk.
I am concerned, because particularly streets around me, are those people whom I know, not just my street I consider extremely dangerous. It's a very bad curve, no visibility. Talking about visibility, maybe 8 yards visibility on both sides on the curve. The poison ivy field spot. Parents, I did not talk to parents, I tell you the truth because I feel responsible about it. But I know that spot is extremely dangerous. So, and by knowing, and it's more than 1/4 of a mile walking, but we seen, because it's 8th grade, we seen half a mile. I would say it's 0.3 mile walking for them. out of the sight of anybody. The place where they picked up at my street. So, and that's not just because I know we could easily change it with my street. I think it's a terrible, terrible, very unsafe location for children, but I cannot be sure that the other streets are safe. So that's why maybe we can, I would feel very good if we would just cancel it and just pick up everybody as we used to pick up at the home. It would be very safe way to do. But if no, then maybe we should ask parents to say, hey, if you feel even a little bit uncomfortable, please let us know, we will pick your child up. Just to make sure that it comes from them, not
That's exactly what I did.
so.
That's why I called them, and before the bus routes came out, if you were on a group stop, you got a call from them. So you knew it before they came out.
Okay,
So I talked to those folks, and anybody that was uncomfortable with it, and even if somebody was uncomfortable with today, if they called me today, I would adjust.
okay, because I think particularly our street is extremely not safe. Even if parents don't call, if they're busy, whatever is going on there in their lives, they just trust us. I think we put those children in danger standing on that corner, on that particular curve, on Meadow Lane. An intersection, it's Bussy
So,
Road and there is.
She's talking about basically a road that looks like a Y, and when you go in, it's a double dead end. So this is what would happen in the past, is the bus would pull in, go down the right dead end, pick up the child, turn around, go up the second dead end, pick up the child, turn around, and come back out. So it's driving an extra mile, basically.
It is a mile, it is an
to
extra
pick it
mile.
up. That is how, if you eliminate those routes now, you have to reroute everybody.
Well, I see a great danger in those children. In the safe, I see a danger for their safety. Like,
Where are they picked up now, at the?
They are picked up.
Start of their neighborhood.
And they are not seen from any house. So it's very dangerous. Anybody can go by. There is a house across the road. Nobody is there. Nobody is watching. People are hardly there in the morning. But it's not even their children.
But
Are you saying
remember,
that the children walk down there unsupervised, young children?
Of course they are unsupervised.
Young
Well,
children
they are 7th and 8th grade. I think the youngest, well, it still doesn't matter. The 12 years old boys 12, 13 years old standing alone. If one is missing, then it's one boy is standing alone. I never allow my children to go on that part of the road, never. Period. That's a strict possible, that's the most strict, I prohibit, because it's not safe. So poison ivy covered. They are standing right on top of poison ivy. The visibility is 0. So I don't know how many more spots like this are now. So I'm just giving, we don't have to vote for anything now. I'm just giving you my concern, and let's think about the possible decision. Because I think we can put all this budget, we can pay all this 9 million, but if one child is in danger, it has no meaning. We have to make sure that the safety, I think before all the education, the safety of the children is our greatest priority. We took them safe from home, we have to return them safely home. We better teach them good, but the safety is priority over everything.
so I'm gonna just tell you that is my #1 priority, and this is exactly what it was, my #1 priority when I made the group stops. So I've driven all those sections, I've been on Google Maps on all those sections. I know what every single spot looks like where there's a group stop.
No, how come then you missed that spot?
Because I didn't miss it, because it is a 25-mile-an-hour zone, and you can see where they walk, where they wait. You can see that way, yes, it's on a curve. You can see that way, yes, it's on a curve.
And
I
right.
did have, hold on, I did have another person that was on that group stop, and I took them off because they would have had to walk on the curve. I didn't want that. But there's no, those 2 folks that are on that group stop are within their neighborhood. And I talked to both of those parents about it. So the parents have the obligations in your policy if they choose to supervise their students or not. I let my kids walk to the bus. I cannot see them all the time. But it's no different than when they're playing in the neighborhood. I don't see my kids all the time. So I just want to make sure it's very clear that is my #1 priority, and I didn't make any stops that I wouldn't be comfortable with as a parent. And that's exactly why I called those folks. Every single person on the group stop was called. Every person. Here's what I'm doing. Here's how I'm doing it. If it was a kindergartner and a 2nd grader, the 2nd grader walked, and it was like to the neighbor's house, the next mailbox down, and you can see them. Their yards are right next to each other. We were stopping every 30 feet, stopping and going. That to me is ludicrous, and it wasn't matching what your policy says for efficiency. That's why I made those changes. So, I mean, I think if you go away from it, that's fine. I think the time to do it would be next year. The only other safety piece that I had discussed with all those families was, if we get a foot of snow, I'm not doing group stops. I'm gonna cancel them until it's clear and they can walk on the sides again, they're safe. But if there's a foot of snow, I don't want them out there. And that we would just go back, and that was the exact discussion we had with the bus company as well.
So I just want to clarify, so the group stops don't happen when there's unsafe road conditions?
No.
One of the challenges, I've got an 800-foot driveway. I cannot see, the bus stop is at the end of my driveway. I cannot see from my house if my kid's standing there, just because of the way it goes. I drive her up, and she's a senior in high school, right? But it's dark. And one of my concerns is that an unsavory character will decide to follow a bus on occasion for a couple weeks, and then knows, and that the kids end up getting targeted. The high school, the buses come when it's pitch black. You can't see if someone's around. So we've taken personal steps to make it safe. But, the spots, if there's the stops, are there any sidewalks? I mean, I don't know if there's any sidewalks in Wellington. It's just as far as, is there a safe place?
Yes.
And is there enough light so that
If it was fully wooded to the edge of the wood, to the curb, I wouldn't do it. They need, they're waiting off the road. And again, still the parents' responsibility at that point.
Right.
And E.O. Smith is doing the same exact thing. They have group stops as well. And I agree, they're in the dark. So.
I know we really,
Has to make
for our
sense.
purposes, it's only does our board have any impact over the grade 9 to 12?
None.
So, because I'm going to tell you, having a kid at the bus at 6 in the morning and they have to walk around the campus is just cruel. I wouldn't want to have to walk around my campus.
No, I'm sorry. At the end, after the meeting, we'll have another present to speak. Yes, so you'll have your chance. So when do we have to come back to this question if we,
Summer.
so anytime in summer, so when do you have
Yeah,
to
and actually,
prepare the routes?
well, we'll have the transportation committee too. So depending on how this moves forward, we're gonna have to make new routes, especially, either way, we're gonna have to make new routes. But especially if we make a K-8
Mhm.
pickup.
Okay. So we
So
could,
that could
okay,
be sometime this spring.
yes, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else has question for this particular?
No, but I have formatting issues to make it more readable. So you would just,
This is your print though?
that's my, flip the page. I don't know what you did, but the formatting is horrible. So either it's the way you copied it into Word and the way it printed out, but I made edits and you can send it back and see if it's just my copy or your copy.
I think it's your copy, because this is what mine looks like.
Yeah, ours don't look anything
That's
like
not
that.
what we look like.
Yeah, take a look at my copy.
All right, I'm gonna ask Brenda about that one.
Yeah.
It is a little hard to follow.
Yeah.
Okay, so no more questions for this, for the transportation question.
I was just gonna say, I think that the danger zone you're talking about, is there no parent that could maybe take turns if they're feeling unsafe for their children? I mean, I'm a helicopter parent. This is my second time around being parent. And my grandson's son, I adopted him, and I never put them in a compromising situation. I have a driveway that it's dark when the bus came. Luke drives now, but she has to always be escorted to the van because the van just simply won't let her off the van unless there's somebody there to receive her. But I just go with them if I feel there's a compromising situation. And to me, you can't be too careful nowadays. I understand Elaine what she's saying about the safety issue, with the unsavory characters and, well, even the safety of just somebody getting hurt, but it seemed like the parent, there could be, take turns, parent patrol, you know, if you really feel that the child is in that much danger. If it saves us gas money or diesel or regular burning, I mean, that is, Mike and I, when we first moved here from California, we couldn't believe, the bus came regardless of where. And he kept saying, look at all the empty seats in those buses. They make these big long trips and there's no children on them. I can understand wanting to save gas.
So we will have to come back to this question before the next school year, I guess, and go through more details. Okay, next question in new business is Board of Education representation on school building committee. At this point, we have 2 people interested on being on the committee. We have letters from them. You will look at your packets. There is a letter from Ann Grosjean, and there is a letter from Herb Erica. Both of them are interested to be on the building committee. So if you did not have a chance to read that letter, it's probably a good moment to do it now. Sure.
So I move to appoint Ann Grosjean to the school building committee.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations?
Well,
Yeah, and do you want to have all nominations in? Okay, let's do this.
I just wanted to say, remember the last time we had the vote? I
Yeah.
had requested that if we have a second motion, that then we vote not yes
Okay,
or no
let's
for
do
either,
this.
we vote for a
Sure,
person. So
sure,
if you
we'll-
want to follow that procedure, that
Okay,
works fine.
absolutely, absolutely.
How many people are we appointing?
We need one person, and Ann is interested and Herb is interested. So there is a motion for Ann to be on the building committee. It was seconded, Tracy, you seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? No discussion?
It's here in the letter, but just to point out, and I would do the same for her when it comes time, but, Ann's experiences, I think, in my opinion, make her qualified to be a representative for the Board of Education and in this building committee. And in her current, not only does she have 35 years experience in schools, she is still working weekly in schools, and she has all this experience with the Connecticut Advisory Council, still advising on the State Board of Education on different programs and laws, and so she's very up on what's going on in 21st century education and in the schools where she can see what is needed, and so I think she's highly qualified.
I think it would be fair for us also to represent her, although there is a motion first to vote for Ann, but
I'm comfortable, what I was saying is that I'm comfortable if you want to have the 2 motions up at the same time and then have us vote on the
Sure.
person and not a yes or no on one and then yes or no on the other.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay,
So that's okay.
So let's make a motion for her.
So I motion to put her on the school building.
Okay, is it the second? Okay, so we have 2 motions and we'll vote for Ann first. And because that's okay, when it's time to vote. I know you were concerned, so I did not want you to be concerned.
I appreciate
So
that.
that's all,
Okay.
that's my only reason for this. So, but I would like to read a letter from Herb, and I don't want to read it all, the same as we don't read for Ann, but we read it all for ourselves. But I would like to mention here that Herb has a tremendous experience with building committees. Actually, he has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. He participated on 7 building committees. I know he is not young, so he has a huge experience. But his experience, nobody can really beat this experience to be on 7 building committees. So that's my word for the Herb. So anybody else has something to say?
Just a reminder that if anything comes back to the board as far as ed specs go for making specifications, if they decide to renovate or build, it's all of you. It's not just this one person. Okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
So if the building committee goes through their process and they say, we hear the board's recommendation to build a new school on a new site, but we feel it's more beneficial to renovate a building. And they start talking about renovations. If they do that, the Board of Ed would help develop the educational specifications for that building. What type of spaces would you want to see in that building when they renovate? This is the group that approves that.
That's also true if it's a new building.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct,
yeah,
correct. So
okay.
just give you an example.
Okay, I just, I'm thinking.
Right,
So
but
we
this
don't
is,
care what we think about it.
I guess the idea is that it's not just this one person that's on the committee. That's the important piece that I'm sharing.
The one person would go to the weekly meetings and then
Correct.
report back to the board about what happened at those meetings. And probably represent the board's view at the meetings, Indiana, I guess.
Any more comments?
Probably, yes.
More questions, comments?
So she doesn't want a yes, no vote. She wants to raise her hand if you would like to vote for her.
Okay,
Raise your hand if you would like to vote for
Sure.
Ann.
sure. So, we're ready to vote. Okay, first we vote for Ann. Please, everybody who votes yes for Ann to be recommended for the building committee, town building committee, please raise your hand. Everybody who is against it, please say no. And please raise your hand.
There's no no's.
For her.
No, yes for her.
Okay, now we do Herb. Okay, now everybody who suggests Herb to be recommended for the town building committee, please raise your hand. So it's 3 against 3. Again, I guess we cannot resolve it tonight. My only suggestion is if we when do we need to come out with a representative?
I don't know. I don't know that answer.
So how about if we'll find it out, if we can come back to it during our next regular meeting when Herb is present? So we would have the full board to vote. If no, then we will have to have a special meeting. He told me he's going to be back next week, so we could do it next week if we have. But I would like to say, Herb and Ann, thank you for volunteering, because that's a lot of work, and to be ready to volunteer this amount of time, that's honorable. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you for the
Does the
consideration.
board make a recommendation for you?
Yeah, why can't you?
I
You know,
wonder,
I think that might be a really good thing, and then,
why not?
and then if they say no, then we're
I don't think they've
not any worse off.
I mean, they were
They told us
establishing
one.
enough, but they were just listing off names to say, here's who, how we would represent. I don't know if they'd be okay with that or not. But
Let's try it, why not to try?
Okay, so I move to appoint Ann Grosjean and Herb Erico both to the school building.
Let's not to appoint, to recommend. Let's to recommend, because we can, they asked for one
That's true,
appointment.
it's true, because it's not our appointment, it's to
Yes.
recommend that the school
Yes.
building committee, that the Board of Selectmen appoint
Yes,
them as the Board of Education representatives.
yes.
Okay.
And if they don't, then you
Then
can,
we'll come
And
back.
we're right where we are.
Okay, is that second?
I second.
Okay.
That wasn't with the selectmen's
Sorry,
minutes.
I'm
Would
sorry,
you-
Elaine, we can't
Yeah,
really
okay.
hear.
Wrong.
At the end, yes,
Marissa, did you
sorry.
get that, or do you want me to repeat it?
I have-
Okay.
Okay, so seconded by Liz, okay. Everybody who is ready to approve, who says, how do you say it?
Who's
I lost.
willing to
Who is willing
recommend
to
to the Board of
recommend,
Selectmen
yes,
to appoint?
recommend. Everybody who is willing to recommend Herb, Erica, and Dan Grosjean for the town building committee, please say yes and raise your hand.
Yes.
Aye, it's unanimous.
okay, so if you can't have two, I will email the board and say, they said no to two, I'll present them to the selectmen. If they say no to two people on the building committee, because they're establishing the building committee, they just created that number.
And they can choose, since they had
Yeah.
a list
We're no
and
worse
people
off.
from public.
Right.
Well, and they're both Board of Ed members and representatives of the town, they're town residents, so it could be both.
But you would be
and-
you would represent both, because you don't know who's coming out of the public either. The recommendation you're making is to have 2 Board of Education members. That's your, and if they say no, they say no.
And we're no worse off than we are now.
Right.
Then we are up to a special meeting if they can't
If we
wait.
need it, I'll find out the time. for
Or
sure.
we'll
Yeah.
do the regular meeting. That's
Okay.
wonderful. Next question. Next question is a review of Board of Education Committee assignments. You have in your packets, all of you have in your packets that preliminary, so it's just something to start from, the list of the committees. If you could please find it in your packets and look through. Because Herb prepared it, so I don't know all the information. That's what was given to me.
I can share a little bit more, because I got an email from Liz, I got an email from Donna, I got an email from Michelle, and I got an email from Tracy. So Herb and I met about this, but then we said it was probably just easier to discuss it here. He was trying to place some names. I think if I look at Herb's, and I'm gonna start easy if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Clubs, Michelle and Liz both asked for that, and nobody else that had that on their list. If you didn't email me, it's not there, so.
I would be okay being there.
So, do you wanna start simple?
Unless
and-
somebody else wants. So-
You can leave it there, so then, and see how the other ones play out.
So, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
It's okay.
Can we, before when we name the committee, can we quickly discuss how often they meet? How often do you need them to meet, like wellness
Didn't
and
bring that
security?
paper with me.
And part of the issue is that all the ones on the bottom are ad hoc. So they're,
Secondary.
so it's that they don't meet practically at all, and then they meet multiple
Staff
times.
negotiations isn't anything anytime soon.
Right.
Clubs is maybe once a year, wellness and security once a year. Facilities depends on what happens as we move forward. And transportation is kind of more of a hot topic. That probably would be active for this spring.
Okay.
Could we just know who, like Michelle and Liz both want to be on clubs?
Yeah,
So
the-
that makes them happy and that's what they want to be
So
on.
the
That
recommendations.
makes sense.
Yeah, so.
The checks, so in policy, I don't think I got an email from Ann, did you email me?
I emailed Brenda.
Okay, so that must be right then. So Ann and Elena, I think you said
Yes.
policy.
Yes.
Michelle said finance.
I would
Tracy, I
rather
didn't
not
check
do
yours.
finance. If somebody wants to do finance, go ahead.
No, I say curriculum and then anywhere else would be fine.
Oh, that's why I circled you. Tracy said curriculum. Michelle, I think you also said policy.
I think it says Michael on the sheet, but I
It
think
does,
it's meant to be
that's not
Michelle.
Sorry.
My husband's name is Michael, and it's a common error in our house.
I did clubs. Wellness was Liz and Donna, their request.
So how about if everybody just check if you would like to change something or you would like to stay where you
Well, what
are?
else does anybody else have?
And that was security was, I think Herb asked for that too. Herb, Michelle, and Donna both all asked for that. And that's typically been one member. Because it's a huge committee of stakeholders.
You mean the security?
Yes. Yeah, that's a state requirement that we have to have. I mean, if you want to add 2 members to it, I don't have a problem with that, but it's a huge committee.
So we used to have one member and,
Michelle was your representative.
Okay, so-
Because you have to have someone who's a health professional, you have to have a fire department, where you have to have a full boat of people on there.
so,
Fire chief is part of it, it's huge, police officers.
so you wanted to be on that?
Yeah, so I said I would continue.
Yeah. And her, so I guess it's okay.
Why not Rich?
So let's try to
I
see.
need to know how many hours policy, finance, and curriculum.
Donna,
because
so
I'm listed for all
I was
three, and
thinking
that's a
about
little
you,
bit
Donna,
too
for
much.
policy, and I'm gonna be honest with you, we're gonna meet right away. So I know you were worried, your request, Donna put in writing that she was requesting anything that's meeting before April, and we understand why. That wouldn't make sense for you right now. That might not be the best committee for you, because the 2 committees that are probably gonna be super active right away are policy and curriculum instruction. Those 2 committees. The other committee is gonna be transportation. Those 3 committees. And
You said policy, curriculum, instruction, I'm sorry, what was the third one?
and transportation. So those are the three committees I see being very active this spring, just because of the transportation changes, curriculum instruction, we need to improve, approve curriculum and policy. We still have a lot of work to go, despite lots of things that have already been done.
And another technical question, if you're listed as an alternate, do you have to go to all these meetings?
No, you cannot go because you can't have more than three. So we would contact you and say, you know, we need an alternate, or the group could say we could do it with two if they wanted as well. There's no voting at any of these committee meetings. They're not making decisions, they're making recommendations, and then it comes back to this full board.
So I would argue that for the same purpose, Herb can't be ex officio, he can be an alternate.
Where?
So,
On the policy?
in both cases, he's listing both Phil and Herb for policy,
Mhm.
and both, because if he came even as ex officio, it would
Yes.
still give us the quorum.
You can't have four. Yeah.
So,
He will have to be
so
an
he can
alternate.
be an alternate.
So we'll put him on the alternate.
So do you want to go right in order? So it's policy,
So let's do the policy. I'm all set with policy. Anybody else wants to change? Donna and
I'm good with policy.
so we're gonna scratch down.
Well, one thing about the committees, though, that you didn't say is that 3 is the maximum number. Many of the committees have operated with 2 when somebody's sick or can't come for part of the time. I
Correct.
have busier and less busier times for work
So if
travel.
we just cross
So-
me off and leave you as an alternate for policy?
Well, so what I was gonna say is that even as the alternate, I have busier and less busy times for work. My busy time is your busy time.
Okay.
So the two of us
So
shouldn't
they-
both be alternates because we're busy at the same time. I'm not free until after the 17th of August, of April.
well, I know that,
April.
yeah, I know that Herb was free and he was very interested on the policy. So I will feel very confident instead of Donna then putting him on the policy committee.
And who's the alternate?
Herb, and then
And I'll stay
Michelle,
as the alternate.
Michelle is the
I'm happy with
alternate.
that, I've just,
Okay.
Can someone just read this out, or is it?
Yeah, I'll give you the whole grade.
Okay.
You're with us.
So
You're always
I,
with us.
It's okay, I didn't have a copy of that, so I'm just like.
oh, you know what, hold on, we
It's
can.
not gonna help you because it's gonna,
Okay.
we're
No
gonna,
worries, okay, no
I'm gonna give you the
worries.
whole grade.
Sure.
So policy's meeting a lot, and finance, when is there?
Finance is not gonna meet a lot
So,
at this point in time,
only if there were some big,
something big coming up.
so
Do you want to be instead of me?
if, well, I was gonna say,
That would actually be a good one.
finance makes more sense for me.
Okay.
You could switch.
so Elena
And
would be
and
the
I'll do
alternate?
alternate,
Okay.
yeah.
So just switch the two of us.
Unless somebody else wants.
So that's for Michelle and Donna,
Yes.
Donna.
And then Elena would be the alternate.
and Elena's the
Okay.
alternate, yeah.
Okay, and then what's the deal with the curriculum?
So curriculum instruction. You wanted curriculum instruction too, didn't you?
Yeah.
And Ann's as an alternate.
So could we switch me and Ann, so that I'm
Yeah.
an alternate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's totally like that.
I think Ann is much better suited for
So you'd have Liz, Ann, and Tracy with Donna as an alternate.
Okay, I have a question on the curriculum. I don't remember signing up for that. Did I sign up?
No, Herb might have dropped you right in there.
Okay, because I do remember trying to get something that was not a lot of meetings because of Destiny and.
Oh, that's right, you said
My
school
son
wellness and clubs,
graduating
that
this
was your
year.
request.
Well, I can, if you don't want a lot of, I can do curriculum if nobody else wants instead of Liz.
And transportation, I see I'm there too. I was just.
Yeah, I think we were trying to move and then we just stopped.
That's okay.
All right, so how about we go through round one
So-
and see where things.
So we did
Yeah,
two.
we will,
We
so
just
that would be,
negotiate.
curriculum instruction would be Elena, Ann, and Tracy, and Donna would be the backup. Is that better for you?
On
And-
the curriculum.
On the
and Liz,
curriculum
we could get
instruction.
you on, Liz requested school wellness committee or clubs.
Yes.
So I think if you make sure she's either on one or both of those,
Okay.
does that make sense?
Yes.
It was what you requested, so.
Wellness and clubs, and the,
And she's on there for both of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
that makes sense.
and then curriculum, I will be instead of Liz.
Yes, so you'd be Elena, Ann, and Tracy, the alternate would be Donna.
Herb had also been under ex officio, that I'm assuming that's something that he was interested into, so if that's too much for you, you could put Herb as the alternate.
So, yeah, we'll have two alternates, Donna and her.
Okay, but is that okay?
It's fine, I just wanted to give you the option, since that was on
We
there.
can do that instead.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that would,
So staff negotiations, you honestly could leave that empty for now if you wanted to, because you don't have it.
When do we have it?
Although it's nice, if you have a,
Oh, in 3, oh yes, we did it last
Wow.
year.
It's good just in case there's a.
something pops up, that's what I was
Yes.
saying,
It may be
yeah. Yep.
inactive, but at least you have people in place.
Fine.
So you're
Then-
3.
Then fine, as
You-
long as
that-
I wanted to stand off.
Was there anybody else that wanted to be on negotiations that requested it that Herb didn't have on there?
I don't mind being there, especially
So
that.
Herb,
we don't accept-
Elena and Ann, do you want to leave that alone?
Yes, I don't mind.
Okay, so staff negotiations would be all set. Clubs, you have 2 spots left. Michelle, that's your wheelhouse, right? That's,
I thought we had
Professional.
Michelle and Liz.
Michelle, me, and Liz, if anybody else, I don't mind being on the clubs, but if somebody else wants, I'll be happy to give this spot.
Tracy, are you anywhere on here?
I'm on wellness and curriculum.
Now, wellness
Okay, yeah, I
meets
got you.
during the day, doesn't it usually feel
Usually end of the school day.
end of the school
Yeah.
day? Okay.
Yeah.
That might be tricky for me.
But we figured that out.
Adjusted.
It's literally once, maybe twice a year. When it comes up for the school, food policy next month. So is Elena, are you the 3rd rep on clubs?
I'm okay.
Okay?
It's not gonna be that often though.
No. So we only have 1 rep right now on wellness, that's Liz. Donna also requested wellness, and I think Donna,
Wait, I'm confused, because you've got Ann, Liz, and Tracy on the bonus.
that
Herb
was
just
what
put them in.
Herb put. I added in who requested it.
Oh,
So, and that's why I'm trying to say that Donna requested this, Liz requested this. So, do
I'm
you
okay
want
with-
to,
Ann and Tracy, that's
Ann
up
or
to them.
Tracy, do you want to, and you're
I'm
on,
on other things, if you
so
want to drop me from that.
maybe do
Yeah,
Liz,
go
Tracy,
there.
and Donna?
Okay.
Is that,
Okay,
okay, so,
Donna, Liz, and Tracy,
yep,
okay?
and what
You're-
time does that one
that's, we schedule it, we work with the entire, it's a smaller committee, so we work with the group. It's with teachers, food
Can you
services.
just add an E to my name, because it,
I will when this is right.
I got an extra A on my agenda.
it's been bothering me since first grade. And I couldn't go out of recess because I swore my name had an E.
You're on security.
Yeah, security, Herb, Michelle.
I do think Herb wanted that, so Donna, are you okay if that's Herb and Michelle?
I am perfectly content with that.
Okay, so we'll do that as a 2 because it's smaller. And you know what, Donna, maybe we'll do it, have you as an alternate? We don't have alternates for the other,
Yeah, but I thought you said normally you only send 1 person to these meetings, so I don't know if you need an alternate.
okay, so you're,
That's
as long
right,
as you're
Yeah,
okay
as long
with it.
as
As long as
long-term,
one-
I can make it, yeah.
Okay, and then all board members for facilities, transportation is the last one. And is there anybody who's dying to be on transportation that is not listed there? Ann's like, no
No,
thanks.
thanks.
Okay, so that'd be Michelle, Lynn, and Liz?
Am I coming, oh, I thought I was coming off.
You don't,
I
it's
didn't
a-
sign up for it,
it's
but
a- okay, so this-
it doesn't meet often, that's what I'm trying to look at.
that one
because-
could be,
It's
This
just for a
spring.
while, yes?
Yeah, 'cause
this spring could
I-
be.
But it's
Why don't
basically,
we-
but it's only the 4 of us, so it's not an outside committee, it'll be Michelle, Elena, Liz, and Phil, and so we can work around whatever scheduling you want, we can make it
Well, I'm
at
pretty
any time.
flexible as far as my days because I don't have work outside the home, but I just don't want to overextend myself and get burnout. That's what I'm trying to say.
If I look at your,
Because I'm on the library board too, so I'm going to be
Yeah.
there.
I would say that would be your committee that would be the most active. Your clubs and your wellness are not gonna meet a ton because there's a lot in place already for those.
Yeah.
But transportation will probably meet, I would say an estimate of 4 to 6 times this year.
Per year.
This year, and it's because it's just an ad hoc committee.
And Liz, if you want to step off, we can put Herb in there, and then if he doesn't like it, we can change it next time he's here.
Sorry, Herb.
Why don't we do that? So,
Okay.
so can we go? over-
Yeah, so I'll read them all and make sure you agree with what I have on my paper here. So policy is Ann, Elena, and Herb, and the alternate is Michelle. Finance is Herb, Michelle, and Donna, and the alternate is Elena. Curriculum and instruction is Elena and Tracy with an E, and the alternates are Donna and Herb. Staff negotiations, we left alone, Herb, Elena, and Ann. Clubs, Michelle, Elena, and Liz. Wellness is Liz, Tracy, and Donna. Security is Herb and Michelle. Facilities is all board members, and transportation is Michelle, Elena, and Herb. You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, your policy says that you vote on this. Because I think, and I'll say this and you guys can figure out which way you want to do it, I think it's okay if you wait on this to vote with Herb.
I agree.
But what I would ask is, I would ask you to approve the policy committee, because that committee needs to get going. And if we wait till March, we're not gonna approve any policies this year.
And so I move to appoint Ann, Elena, and Herb to the policy committee with Michelle as the alternate.
Any second? Somebody second? Somebody second, so 2 seconds.
Donna.
Yes,
Donna
you got it,
seconded.
Donna seconded, okay, thank you. So, now we can vote, please, everybody who is ready to approve, Ann, Elena, and Herb, and Michelle as an alternate for the policy committee, please say yes and raise your hand. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we can vote on the rest. I'll add those to, I'll send out this grid to everyone, so it'll have the updated grid, and then you can vote on the rest next one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So now we are back to present to speak. Elaine left me a message. I know, question about the transportation of our students to Region 19 should be raised at the Region 19 board by our board members.
Since this isn't the Region 19 board, you can
Yes.
pass it along to people who know that other towns.
It's again Herb. He is on the Region 19, so we'll make sure that he gets this note. Is there anybody else present to speak? Please state your name.
Todd Bissonette, 41 Cosgrove Road. I've just got a quick question. It's in reference to the school building committee. The process that was done tonight. I don't know Herb, I don't know Ian, so I'm not speaking on behalf of either one. I don't understand the policy, the rules, or the regs that the Board of Ed do. When I used to participate in contracts and other contracts, we weren't allowed to vote for ourselves in forming committees, and that's what's not against you. I keep hearing Herb's name tonight. That man was ditched a lot of stuff tonight on his plate, and he's not even present. And what puzzles me is that it's obvious he's interested in position. I don't know what's taking him away from this meeting, why he could not attend, but shouldn't there be an absentee vote or something of consideration for somebody that has applied for the position and not to be given the opportunity like Ann has? And once again, it's nothing personal. And I don't care either, I don't know either in one of the parties, but as I said before, in my past, and it's totally different from the Board of Ed, you could not vote for yourself. You had to abstain. So is the vote legit? Or is it being done properly? That's my only question. It's not negative, it's not positive, it's just positive intent, I should say, of what's actually transpired.
Well, in accordance with our policies, because we are a small board, we are allowed to vote for themselves. The chair is allowed to vote for himself, because some votes, big votes, big boards, the chair, for example, is not voting. When it applies to our small board, the chair is a voting member. Everybody has a right to state their opinion, and everybody has a right to vote for themselves because of the small board, in accordance with our bylaws and policies of our particular town. As for the absentee vote, again, in accordance with our policies, we cannot do it. And actually, it's also state statute.
Okay.
So it's not up to us, but it was checked before, don't worry.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer.
I'm staying.
Thank
Yes, you're welcome. Is anybody else? Sure.
Janice Castle, 18 Penny Hill Road. I would like to thank you all for, and I did not make it to any of the budget forums, the different meetings that you had. I read all the minutes, and I'm glad those got out to us. The staff has all had the opportunity to see them as well. But thank you for all your time in doing that. as a staff member and a resident, it's reassuring to put forward a budget that, lean as it is not less than is not cutting what we already have, which we don't have much. We have, as you know, most of you know, we have great staff members who care so much about the students in our schools and spend tons of time nurturing your students. As you saw, I had both of those girls that were here tonight and the one that's the third grader that's there, and her brother, so I have had all of them. And the staff does a great job, but it's nice to have the support of the board and that you're putting forth what has been determined that we need to be able to support the children, because that's the most important thing. So thank you for your time and effort, and Phil, thank you for putting the good things on the calendar, on your agenda, because I don't think, in fact, tonight, my kids and our principal are at a arts award night, so hopefully you'll be hearing about that at the next meeting. I'm not there because my student was on vacation, the one that was for music, but he'll come back with a certificate. So hopefully, I would like to be able to honor him here, so at least he can stand up and have, that recognition. But there are lots of great things that are going on with our kids, and so thank you for bringing it to all the board's attention. And I know Donna was at the concert that we had at Center School. So thank you for coming to that, and I got your note, thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So, no more questions or comments from the public present. I guess we can go to the board comments. Who would like to start? Tracy, would you like to start? If you have any comments?
Sure, yes. Then I don't have to worry about repeating. I'd just like to thank everyone that, although those came to present speak, and I especially appreciate, just because they're young and it's difficult to speak, the children who came to share their experiences and projects with us, so we can see the children that are connected to those experiences. And also, I appreciate the respectful and collaborative process that we've been through for the past month, that I feel was a very good way to start our year with the board, or 4 years with the board. Whatever.
I'm thankful that the young people came to share. I hope that they're not under the impression that we're trying to cut the music program or the arts program. I hope they just wanted to share because they wanted us to see the good stuff, and because that, to my knowledge, is not on the chopping block in any way, shape, or form. So hopefully they know that too.
Michelle?
Loved having the students here and the puppy, but we didn't get to pet the puppy, so I'm a little frustrated. We need like a therapy dog, so maybe if there's anybody watching who has a therapy dog for us, that might be a stress reduction option for the board. And also, I'm really excited to hear more about the school-based health services, and thank you, Phil, for moving that process along. I think that has tremendous potential. I do a lot of work on social emotional learning in my day job, and the stresses that our kids are facing affects how they learn, and the more counseling and support we can get them, the better our test scores will be. So overall, I think it's the right thing to do for our kids, and I'm really excited about that next month.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Mrs. Nash for her 6 years of service and wish her well in her new job. And also, one thing I enjoyed about tonight is those are a couple of our magnet students. So it's great to see, we have it in our budget, we have our little placeholders in our budget for our magnet students. So it's great to see how much they're enjoying it and appreciating it, and that our money is being well sent, sending them to a special school. So,
Thank you. Please.
Yes, I would just like to thank each one of my co-board members for kind of shepherding me through this process. I've never served on a board before, and I'm hoping that it'll be a good relationship. And there was a question I have about the retreat. Is that like an in-service training?
Yes.
Just to familiarize us with?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be there, for sure. But yeah.
Lots
okay.
of information.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your comments. So now we can move to adjournment. I move to adjourn the Board of Education meeting at 9 o'clock.
I'll second it.
Seconds. Let's vote. Everybody who says yes, please raise your hand. Thank you. It was unanimous. Thank you very much.